A blessed day to you, brothers and sisters in Christ. We thank God once again for an opportunity to come your way with this word. And we continue with the subject on trusting in the Lord with all your heart, drawn from 1 Samuel chapters 21 and then 22. And then Pastor Paul ropes in Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 and 6. Trusting in the Lord with all your heart and not leaning on your own understanding. I believe that you are gaining some clarity and understanding from this teaching. As we continue with this subject today, I pray that God, through the power of the Holy Spirit, will give you further revelations and understanding on what it means by trusting in the Lord with all your heart. Even when you get to the point, of no returning. The point of no return. Let us go in now and listen.
Remember what we read at the very beginning of the passage, the very beginning of our study? Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but rather in all of your ways, acknowledge Him. God, I'm in a tough spot. That's how you acknowledge the Lord. You acknowledge Him in all your ways. My ways right now, as far as David is concerned, if he were talking to the Lord, he'd say, my ways are dangerous. So Lord, I'm going to acknowledge you in the danger of my current situation. I acknowledge you as Lord of my life, and I'm going to give this thing into your hands to know what I should do, where I should go, and how I should act. David isn't doing that. And that's pretty obvious for you and I to see. He is not trusting in the Lord with all of his heart. He is trusting in himself with all of his heart. He's doing his own thing. He's working out his own problem. He's figuring his own solution. He is delivering himself from his problems. Do you understand? That's the danger of this situation. And what it produces are lies. And that lie, we're going to hear in just a little bit here as we get into the next chapter, is going to have extremely grave consequences for many people. I said 85 people are going to die. It's actually going to be way more than that. But the point is, when we do not trust in the Lord and we choose to trust in ourselves for whatever reason, and usually, guys, it's fear. It can be pride. Sure, that can be the reason people trust in themselves, but more often than not, it's fear. More often, that's at least what I found. It's usually fear. Something comes up that causes us to be very afraid, and we're so afraid, we just think, I got to do something now! And so we do it, whatever it is, and it's as dumb as going to live among the Philistines. And then we get into that situation and we find out, well, this isn't any good. They know who I am. So now I got to act like an idiot in front of them and like I'm insane, and yeah, it was kind of insane to go here. But now I got to act like I really am so that these guys will, want to get rid of me. Get this guy out of here. He's gross. Get him, pull him, just get, I got business to do. He's the king of the whole Philistine area. It's like, get this guy, So it works, but David gets out of there and then he runs for his life. How do you suppose it feels for David? I mean, this is the man who took a sling and felled Goliath. This is the boy who had so much faith that when Saul said, you can't go up against Goliath, he said, oh, but the Lord will enable me. Same guy. This is the boy who, when Saul tried to dress him in his armor, said, I can't wear these. I'm not going to go out. The Lord is going to be my armor. And this is the boy who went out and did the impossible because the Lord was with him and enabled him to deal with a situation like Goliath. Boy, you think you've been through a situation like Goliath, and you probably think to yourself, oh man, if I had a victory like that in my life, I would think to myself, well, what can't I do? Wouldn't that build up your faith a little bit if you did a David and you brought down a Goliath and you knew that it was because it was the Lord who was with you. You trusted in him with all of your heart. You didn't lean on your own understanding. You didn't lean on other people's understanding either when they tried to tell you you couldn't do it. You just went out and did it, and it worked, and it was successful, and God got the glory, and it was wonderful. And then you think to yourself, I'm invincible because the Lord is with me. Not so. We can have marvelous victories and then run with our tail between our legs the next minute. You guys remember Elijah? Elijah, oh, what a bold man. He gathers all the prophets of Baal, 400 of them. You guys, tell you what, let's have a little bonfire. You guys build an altar over there, I'll build an altar here. You sacrifice your animal and put it on the altar, I'll sacrifice an animal, put it over here. And then I tell you what, here's what we'll do. You call on your God and I'll call on my God. And whoever God rains down fire from heaven and consumes the sacrifice, he's God. Deal? They went, well, okay, deal. I mean, what were they going to say? He challenged them. Anything less than deal would have been, our God isn't real. So, okay, all right. You guys know the story. And then he lets them go first, and they're hooping and hollering and trying to get their attention of their God. And, of course, nothing happens. And Elijah taunts them. He's just full of confidence. He taunts them. Where's your God? Maybe go to the bathroom? Is he busy? That's literally, if you read the Living Bible, it actually says that. It says, maybe he's in the bathroom. Living Bible can be a hoot sometimes. But, it's just, he was having a great day. And then finally he said, all right, enough of you guys. He builds up the thing, and then he says, all right, now start pouring water on the altar. He drenched the wood. He said, I want you to dig a trench around the thing, fill it full of water. He calls on the Lord, oh God, show your glory. Fire falls from heaven, boom, consumes the altar, the wood, licks up all the water that's in the trench, and everybody's kind of like, whoa. And Elijah points to the prophets of Baal, and he says, get them. They're all slain that day. They're all put to death that day. Wow, what a victory. Very next day, he gets a poison pen letter from Jezebel. She says, by this time tomorrow, you will be like them. He runs for his life. Runs for his life. Holes up in a cave somewhere and prays to die. This great man with a great victory, with powerful success, who trusted in the Lord with all of his heart, he could stand against 400 prophets of Baal, but one woman sends him this poison pen letter, and he is absolutely in an emotional tailspin and running for his life. Can you relate? Suddenly now, he can't trust the Lord for dealing with this one woman. All he could handle 400. And it's the same thing here in this situation. David, fells Goliath, this giant, whom Saul was afraid to go up against. And now when Saul is hunting his life, David is afraid. And he resorts, instead of trusting in the Lord, he resorts to self, lying, deceiving, running by his wits. So he departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. It says in verse 1. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone, I love this. Here's the people who came and gathered with David. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul, gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And then it says there were about 400 men. Doesn't that sound like a great crowd? They're basically a bunch of malcontents. They're just kind of sitting there with one hand on their sword all the time, ready to pull it out and just cut you. I'll cut you. Because they're mad. They're discontent and they're in debt, some of them. Those would be fun guys to hang out with, right? You know? So those are David's men. Isn't that fun? There's 400 of them. Basically, what happens is people start hearing David's on the run and they're like, I'm with him. Which probably wasn't a bad idea. Hey, keep your finger here and turn to Psalm 57. Just keep your finger so you don't lose your place there in 1 Samuel 22 and go to Psalm chapter 57. And we are going to read the psalm that David wrote when he went to the cave of Adullam. What's really interesting about being able to read the Psalms is to connect them with the life of David and to see that these were not just random situations in his life where the Lord was not present. Yes, there were these were strugglesome times, and David wasn't walking as he should in many, ways, but he would still continue to cry out to the Lord. Look at Psalm 57. By the way, it says at the beginning to the choir master, according to Do Not Destroy, that's a tune, a miktam, and we're not sure what that even means, of David when he fled from Saul to the cave, and it refers to the cave of Adullam. And he cries out and says, be merciful to me. O God, be merciful to me. For in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge till the storms of destruction pass by. Do you get the impression by just reading that first verse that David is like been just convicted all over the place about what he just did? He lied to the high priest and took the sword of Goliath by lying to the high priest. And then he talked about all these men that he wanted to feed, and that was a lie. And then he went to live among the Philistines, and then he had to act like a madman just to get away. And he probably got to the cave of Adullam and just collapsed before the Lord and said, God, I am such an idiot. Be merciful to me. Oh, be merciful to me. He says, I cry out, verse 2, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills His purpose for me. He will send from heaven and save me. He will put to shame him who tramples on me. God will send out His steadfast love and His faithfulness. My soul is in the midst of lions. Remember, the soul is the emotions, the intellect. I lie down amid fiery beasts, the children of man, whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. Oh, be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. They set a net for my steps. My soul was bowed down. They dug a pit in my way, but they have fallen into it themselves. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. Sounds like David has had a change of heart here in the cave, doesn't it? I will sing and make melody. You think he feels like singing and making melody? I love that about David. David did this at the times in his life when I think he probably was at his lowest. He would say things like, I will sing to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord. He didn't say, I feel like singing. Or, I feel like dancing. He would say, I will sing to the Lord. Because you know what? It was a sacrificial offering that he gave to God. Not because he felt like it. Have you ever come to church on a Sunday morning, Wednesday night, and you're here, you're tired, maybe you just had an argument on the way with your family or something like that, and you get here and you're like, I dare you. Dare you to try to make me smile. And we get into worship and we're kind of like, bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh my soul. We just don't want to be here and we don't want to sing because we don't feel like it, right? I don't think David felt like it. He's in a cave. He's been running for his life. He doesn't know when or if Saul might catch him. And he says here, I will sing. Look what he goes on to say in verse 8. He says, awake, my glory. Awake, O harp and lyre. I will awake the dawn. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For your steadfast love is great to the heavens. your faithfulness to the clouds. So be exalted, O God, above the heavens, and let your glory be over all the earth. That is a declaration of faith. When David says those things, I don't want you to think that this was a man who always felt them. And no, he's not being hypocritical. He's speaking words of faith apart from feeling. You and I are so tied to our feelings that when we feel like, or when we know that it's time to praise the Lord, we will just say, well, I don't feel like it. And we don't do it. You know why? Because we obey our feelings. But we've obeyed our feelings so much culturally that we are now slaves to our feelings. And we now don't feel like it. I'm not going to go to church today because I don't feel like it. I'm not going to read my Bible because I don't feel like it. I'm not going to praise and sing because I don't feel like it. And we're just being taken down the road of feeling. And we obey our feelings. And David, I am sure David did not feel like singing at this time or praising the Lord. But he did it out of obedience. He did it because God was worthy to receive the glory and the honor and the praise. He did it because he knew it would make a difference in his life. Let's go back to 1 Samuel chapter 22. It says in verse 3, and David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and my mother stay with me till I know what God will do for me. Now he was afraid for his parents, and so he realized that Saul could very easily try to attack his family and get rid of them. And so he goes to the king of Moab. Do you remember who the Moabites come from? Do you remember when Lot was driven out of Sodom and Gomorrah, his two daughters were fearful that they would not have children, or there would be no one by whom they could have children. So they got their dad liquored up on 2 different nights and slept with him, and each had children by their father. And one of them had a child and named him Moab. And obviously he became the father of the Moabites, so it was an incestuous relationship. Not a good thing to base an entire civilization of people on, I have to tell you. But that's where the Moabites come from. But so David is going to the king of Moab, and he's asking for a place of sanctuary for his parents and some of his family members. And it says in verse 4 that he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold, probably 10 years. And then the prophet Gad said to David, do not remain in the stronghold, depart and go into the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, hear now, people of Benjamin. Remember, he was from the tribe of Benjamin himself. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me? No one discloses to me that when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse, none of you is sorry for me, or discloses to me that my son has stirred up his servant against me to lie in wait as at this day. Boy, I tell you, is this guy a Looney Tune or what? I mean, jealousy has absolutely pushed him off the edge by this time. And now he's paranoid against everybody. And he accuses them all of being in cahoots with David. He found out his son was. He thinks everybody is. Well, probably had reason to, since everybody loved David. But he actually believes that Jonathan has conspired with David so that David might lay in wait and then kill Saul at the appropriate time. He actually believes it. He believes it. But what these statements only reveal to you and I about Saul is just how distorted his thinking had become. What was really going on was David was running from him because of his relentless pursuit of him. And then verse 9, here comes Doeg. Just a little tip, don't ever name any of your kids Doeg. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul. I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Yeah, I saw those things happening there. Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all of his father's house, the priests who were at Nob. And all of them came to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." And he answered, "Here I am, my lord." And Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you've given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me to lie in wait as at this day?" Then Ahimelech answered the king, "And who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law and captain over your bodyguard and honored in your house? Is today the first time that I have inquired of God for him? No. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all this, much or little." And the king said, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house." This is the point in my study when I start getting mad. This reckless hatred with no regard for the things of the Lord, this insanity of heart and mind that just wants to be angry, wants to just vent. It's just the craziest thing in the world. Let me just stop for just a moment. Some of you, I don't know how many of you get Calvary Mail. You might have seen a note that I sent along today. I'm going to make a point here about this in a moment. About 7 years ago, a young mother living down in Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas, was arrested. Her name was Hannah. And she was arrested because a foster child in her care had died. And she was convicted. First, she was accused of his murder. They actually never convicted her of murder. What they convicted her of was not calling 911 in time. And so they sent her to life in prison. Life in prison. She's a Christian woman. I happen to know the pastor of that church down there. And they were horrified. 7 years this thing has gone on. Today, she was released from prison. And it is really exciting. They had another hearing, a brand new judge. I think that the Lord is probably going to expose a good amount of corruption. But that's not the big news. The big thing is that Hannah is back with her family. The case was a sham from the very beginning. Several major media outlets did specials on it. 2020 did a special on it. In fact, if you get on to YouTube and just search for Hannah Overton, Overton, and then put in 2020 or ABC or Katie Couric, did a special on her. Several other news services did specials and brought out how the horrible job that was done during the trial and what a travesty of justice it was that this woman was languishing in prison. And, well, eventually, it came to light. They had a hearing again, and she was released. She was released. Praise the Lord. So, I start looking around online at some of the news services, and there's a story about Hannah here or there. And you know how at the end of news stories, people have places for comment? Don't read them. Ever. The viciousness of people who don't know anything about it, who just want to be evil, is enough to put you in the worst mood of the day. I mean, the pastor was telling us all on the pastor's email group how people will drive onto the church parking lot and put up signs about how they hope this woman stays in prison for the rest of her life, and just the most wicked things that people could say when it has come out through the court system. The highest court in Texas released her today. The Supreme Court of Texas essentially the highest court, said, go. And yet people are just absolutely determined to slander and speak evil. And it's one of those things that you and I don't get to witness very often. And thank God that we don't. This raw, uncensored evil that's in the world. Doeg the Edomite is one of these kind of guys. He's one of these kind of guys. Just raw, uncensored evil. And you're going to see that as it goes here. And so the king says, you shall surely die. And it says, look at verse 17. And the king said to the guard who stood about him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David. And they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put out their hand to strike the priests of the Lord. At least they had a conscience. And then the king said to Doeg, he's a foreigner. He doesn't care about the priesthood. You turn and strike the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests, and he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. That means of the priestly family. But you know what? He wasn't done there. Look what it goes on to say. And Nob, the city of the priests, he put to the sword, both man and woman, child and infant, ox, donkey, and sheep. He slaughtered them all. I don't know, just because I guess he had a free pass by an insane king. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. And I want you to hear what David says. And David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day when Doeg the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. But then he goes on to say, stay with me, do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping. You know, I'm so impressed by David. Yeah, he's a man just like us. He can make some pretty serious mistakes. He can lie and try to lie his way out of a difficult situation. But you know what? There's one thing about David that I appreciate so much. When he's faced with something that he's done wrong, he confesses it. He confesses it. And he says to this man whose entire family has been wiped out, I have occasioned this thing. It was because of my oversight, my lies, my lack of diligence. I knew Doeg was there. I knew that it was going to happen. I knew it. Would you take a moment as we close to turn over to Psalm 52? And we will close with this. Psalm 52. It says, at least in the ESV, to the choir master, a maskil of David, when Doeg the Edomite came and told Saul, David has come to the house of Ahimelech. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? The steadfast love of God endures all the day. Your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor. You worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. That's a very nice way of saying God will kill you. The righteous shall see and fear and shall laugh at him, saying, see the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and sought refuge in his own destruction. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you have done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good. in the presence of the godly. Does it sound to you like David learned an important lesson? Because it does to me. It sounds like in this prayer, David has learned one of the most painful and yet important lessons of his life. Because at the end of this psalm, he says, I will wait for your name. I don't know about you, but waiting is not easy for me. I hate waiting. I hate it. And when I'm afraid, I usually just refuse. When you're afraid, waiting is the worst. But David has been he's been shown that by jumping ahead and not waiting for God, not trusting in God's steadfast love, but instead taking matters into his own hands, trying to work out the details all on his own, he has learned that it can have deadly consequences. And so he prays now and says, you know what, God, you are steadfast and you are faithful, and I am going to wait on you. I'm going to wait. And you know, if I keep living the way I've just lived, I'm going to be just like Doeg, a man of deceit. That's the really humbling thing. When you see what, in somebody who is ungodly, when you see yourself, that's hard to look at. And what you got to know that while David is crying out about Doeg and referring to him as a man of deceit whose tongue only cares about lying, that he has to be remembering some of the things that he did by lying to the high priest about where he had come and so forth, lying even to the Philistines, not even able to trust the Lord there. And now that's all changing. But you know what? Changing is what this time of running for David is bringing about, because God is using this 10 years roughly or so that David is on the run from Saul to prepare a man for the throne of Israel. And he will prepare him in ways that nothing else would.
Brethren, I believe that you have been blessed by these teachings. I have been blessed. And I must say that we still have some work to do on ourselves. I pray that this teaching has been a blessing to you, and that your steps will be reordered, and then you learn to trust in the Lord even much more. Because life, most especially in our generation now, is very challenging. But with God on our side, we can prevail if we learn to trust in Him with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. Therefore, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom and peace.